And one of the best ways I tell people to figure out who's your ideal client that you want to do business with is.
Hey Cassidy, how's it going? Thank you so much for being on the Elite Agent Talk. I heard so much about you. I've been really excited about this conversation we have scheduled here. But first of all, thank you so much for being on here. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. Back at work today after being off for a few days, so I am in the trenches today. So thank you so much for having me too. We were talking before too. Just I've been following your journey for a while, and I'm just like we're coming full circle. We finally got like on a call, so I'm excited to dive in today.
Yeah, same here. Well, thank you for following me. I've been following you too. But where are you working out of right now? Is that all Nevada insurance?
Yep. All Nevada Insurance Office. In the back of our building, we actually own the building. We purchased it about 4 years ago and made a little area section for some other businesses that we have and some other things. So right now I'm kind of in the back area, but we're in Las Vegas, Nevada. That's where we're located. We do insurance all over the country, but this is home base.
Okay, great. So it's an independent agency,
Yes.
and it's located in Las Vegas.
Yeah.
Yeah. What kind of numbers or what do you want to share about the agency?
Yeah, so it's actually kind of an interesting story. I started about 10 years ago and I was a captive agent with State Farm. And that's where my journey started. I never thought I was going to be insurance. None of us do. And I was actually recruited by a State Farm recruiter. And I had our insurance policies, my family's businesses. And my current agent was with State Farm. And she wrote my first policy when I was 16 and started driving. And when I was recruited, I had a business at the time doing business consulting. I went to school for organizational psychology and I started kind of my own firm and had some clients on retainer and things. And I had just had my first child. And I don't know, this opportunity came by and it was like zero investment. It would be my own business and residual income. And my family had some businesses before. It's actually a really funny story, but we used to be in the beeper industry. I don't know.
Oh yeah.
Depending how old you are, you may not remember, beepers, but we had the number one beeper company in Los Angeles, California. It was called the King of Beepers. So if anyone grew up in LA, you probably heard the commercials on the radio, the King of Beepers. But I knew about residual income in that sense.
Mm.
And I was like, okay, well, let's just see what this is. And I went and sat with my current agent at the time. And I was like, so is this real? They're just going to hand me money, and there is a rigorous process to get approved. A lot of people don't get approved. But they were willing to give me a book of business. I didn't have to buy into, just every captive company is different. You either own equity or you might not. They either gift you a book or you have to buy into it. So I had zero investment that I had to put in. And she showed me how much money she was making, so transparent. And it was kind of like, this is too good to be true. Fast forward a few years, I was like, oh, so it was too good to be true. There was a lot of other pieces that come into this, but I opened my agency. I actually went through a 9-month program at the time. I think now it's only 9 weeks. But as soon as I said, hey, I'm in, let's do this, and they approved me, I found out I was pregnant with my second child. So exactly 9 months. I even had a conversation with my sales leader at the time, and I was like, listen, I just found out I'm pregnant. Like, can we still do this? And he goes, well, legally, we can't say no just because you're pregnant. But it was more for me to say, am I going to be able to do this? And I went through it, and belly was growing, flew to Tempe, Arizona once a month. And I still had a toddler at home that was growing and new to motherhood, but I opened my agency 3 weeks after my son was born. So I was definitely the typical mom, putting the toddler in daycare, and I had the baby carrier and rocking the baby while trying to figure out how to use the phone system. So it was an interesting intro into this industry and this business ownership side, a little different than what I was doing before. But it's been 10 years. About 4.5 years ago, we did the freedom jump, which was what we like to call it, the independent world.
Mhm.
And we left State Farm and opened our own brokerage. So for us, it was really just about being able to have a little bit more freedom I think the captive world is wonderful and it makes so much sense for certain agents. And I always say, if you do well in captive, you will kill it in independent. And I think that State Farm gave me a home for a long time and lots of training and lots of things that helped me develop so that when I did move into independent, I mean, we had all the tools to hit the ground running, which isn't always such a blessing that you have when you open a business. So we switched mainly because we became number one in commercial at State Farm
Mm.
and in our territory for a couple of years. And we realized we were sending, I think the last year before we left, we sent about $3.5 million out to a broker in commercial. And I was like, what are we doing? This is silly, right?
Right.
And so we switched and we were able to replace our book of business within 2 years from what we had at State Farm because I had to walk away from my book, which was hard. I knew what I was doing. I made the decision. I felt fully aligned with the decision. But when you walk away from something that's making money and you go do something new, and we started with zero book as the
Hmm.
independent agency, it was like, wow, we're really starting over. So it was scary, but we killed it and we've been doing better and better ever since. And it's been the best decision that I've made. So that's kind of like the short end version of what's happened in the last 10 years. We still are primarily commercial.
Okay.
We do personal lines, but it's really more of our commercial clients and making sure that we're able to protect all their things, in the agency. But we are commercial specialists. We brand ourselves as commercial, and that's where it's kind of gone.
Wow. Well, thank you for going through your story that fast. You went through so much there, but so how
Yeah, I
far
know.
apart are your in age are your kids?
So my daughter right now, she's 9, almost 10. And then my son is 7 going on 8. So they're 2 years apart. And then
Two
I
years apart.
also had a third about 4 years ago. So,
Yeah,
yep.
because we have two boys and they're 13 months apart. So I kind of know what it's like to have kids around that same age. Well, my wife does better than I
Yeah.
do. So to imagine what she was going through, but running a new business,
Yeah.
oh my God, if you could do that, then what kind of confidence do you have with what's about to come? Like
I
that
mean,
must have
I
been the
always
craziest
say,
time as far as like how busy you were. I mean, so much respect to, moms that are entrepreneurs
yep.
because I mean, talk about the responsibility and just the scheduling you have to go through. I mean, how did you get through the early years of building your State Farm agency?
Yeah. Honestly, sometimes we have to just take it day by day. And if it's really bad, it's hour by hour. But when things are going well and they're in, an environment where they're getting schooling and it's consistent, then it becomes month by month sometimes. And then it just gets easier and easier. Definitely my husband, who's also an entrepreneur, he has like one business. I have four, but he had to slowly learn how to do more things. And as I started making more and more money, because in the first year I made money, but luckily we were profitable the first year, but it was like paid for daycare. It
Yeah.
was like, oh, okay, so we're working for free now. And especially in this industry, I think a lot of people don't understand how we get paid and how it compounds over time. So he was just like, I don't understand why we're doing this. And, when year 2 hit and it was a lot more money, it was like, oh, okay. So yeah, I should help more around the house and I'll pick up the kids and I'll do the thing because I can see where this is going and how this is projecting forward for year 3, 4, 5, 6, for the next 30 years, if this is what I decide to do. So just really figuring out what are the things that are urgent,
Hmm.
meaning like glass balls, right? If the glass ball falls, it's going to shatter. And what things are rubber balls that can kind of fall and bounce back up? And how do we keep our family values and the things that are important to us and those glass balls in the air? And we just got better and better as time's gone on. There's still times where, it feels like one person's doing more and all the things, but he understood that I was not going to be a stay-at-home mom. It's just not in me. But when we had our third child, for example, so privileged that she was able to come to the office with me. she was in the office until she was about 8 months old. And, the team rallied and helped out, and clients just knew that it was going to be part of the experience. And when she was no longer in the office, clients were asking, like, oh, where's your daughter? It was just part of the way this goes. So, again, you just kind of take it day by day. Kids will get sick, things will happen, there's activities, all that stuff. So, the third really put a wrench in the way things were going. Some people say, like, oh, once you have two, the third just kind of falls in line. And they do. She's being raised by my other two kids and us as well. But it's definitely a lot more than just the second, I think, at least personally. It wasn't like going from 1 to 2. It was like 2 to 4, it felt like. But that's the best advice I can really say. You just kind of have to just take it one step at a time, and things change and get better as you get experience, for sure.
Yeah. Well, that's good advice because we were thinking about going from 2 to 3, so I'll consider that. That is more like
Yeah,
4.
sorry. No,
No,
you're
no,
right.
no.
You kill me.
Yeah, but I got a lot of questions. Wow. So for businesses, I mean, I know you do the consulting and I want to talk about that too, but
Yeah.
what other things are you involved in?
So we have commercial real estate. Once we bought this building and realized that we could not only use the building for our own deductions and be able to create equity and long-term, maybe retirement money or whatnot, and invest instead of just paying rent, we rent out about 50% of this building right now. So everyone that's a tenant of ours is paying our mortgage, basically. So now we don't have to pay rent, which is great. That's a huge
Wow.
expense for people.
Hmm.
And it's rental income, which is wonderful. So we ended up buying more commercial property as the years have gone on. So that's one of the businesses that we do, commercial real estate. We also have an RV rental business. So we purchased RVs actually back in 2020. And that was when COVID happened and everybody was renting RVs. They still are actually. It has not slowed down. So that's another business that we have. We do manufacturing and e-commerce of all kinds of products. We import, export from China, and then we wholesale and sell retail online. We have a concrete manufacturing business where we manufacture concrete sinks and just different things, furniture wise, really, really cool. And then I'm trying to think, no.
Yeah, that's from number 4 now.
And then, yes, obviously I have an online digital business for consulting, which is really where I went back and I was like, okay, everything's running smoothly. And I want to go back to my passion. That has always been my passion, to talk about business till I'm blue in the face. I could do it all day long. And really feeling like there was a gap in our industry for people to discuss business. I think a lot of
Specifically,
people,
insurance agents, right?
yes.
Hmm.
So I think specifically people will be able to find sales training. They're able to find marketing training,
Motivation.
sometimes even services and things to help build a team. But when it came down to business foundations on how to manage money, how to become more profitable, how to have more efficient processes, how to build momentum and scale and build a vision and really build your business to design what you want for you and your life and make it individualized and not just leave it to just be by default. Also, I found for myself that I went into entrepreneurship like, I want money and time freedom. Bam. That's why I'm doing what I'm doing, which I think is kind of what everyone wants, right? You don't want to work the 9 to 5. You don't want to answer anybody, but you want this business to become a blessing in your life. And most of the time it turns into a burden. You're handcuffed to your business. You're putting out fires all day long. You're having to deal with the responsibility of your team and expenses and figuring out how you're going to get revenue and all of this stuff. And it just becomes overwhelming. I was in that place. And one day I just woke up and I was like, I don't want to do it this way. I have studied and worked hard to consult for other people, but when you're doing it, you kind of lose sight sometimes of what you're doing. And I worked really hard to rebuild my business from the ground up. This is when we were planning and preparing to jump into independent. And I told my team, I'm like, hey, this is the vision. This is where we're going. This is what we're doing. And we took 3 months, 90 days, where I said, we are not selling anymore. What we're going to do now is we're going to redo our business from the ground up. And all those business foundations that we maybe made mistakes on that I wasn't happy with, really digging deep inside myself saying, what do I want? Right? I want this business to do what for me in my life? And with all that, we spent 3 months just diving deep. What are the things we don't want to do anymore? What are the mistakes that we made that we don't want to make anymore? What are the things that we do well? What is everybody's zone of genius? What does each person bring to the table? How do we maximize on that? What are the things I don't want to do myself anymore? And how do I delegate that? What are the things I do want to continue doing? And really just, like I said, dove deep and created an entire plan of what this is going to look like, which I also think is what made us so successful when we opened our doors to go based off that plan and really be strategic on what the intention is. And then the execution was so easy because we knew what that strategy was going to be. Now, did we still have to refine our execution and the strategy as time went on? Absolutely. There's a huge learning curve when you're going from captive to independent on the sense of learning carriers and their appetites, and not just one system now, but like 50, right? What does that look like?
Wow.
So that's really where I was like, wow, I created this formula and it works. And it's a framework that then every business I've opened since we've used to ensure we were successful and really doing it for our reasons. And kind of stopped doing what everyone else is doing, kind of stopped looking at our neighbor and saying, hey, what is working from them? As far as what we can see on the outside, we never really know how well someone's business is doing. And just looked inside and then thinking outside the box, not being afraid to look at other corporate businesses and what they were doing. I mean, as simple as here in Las Vegas, we have Zappos.com, like the shoe company, and they offer tours of their facility. And so I took the team and I said, let's go see what Zappos is doing. I mean, obviously it's a much bigger corporation than what we do. But when we did that tour, we took so many notes and so many things from there and said, okay, how do we incorporate the stuff we loved that they're doing into even our small business? And so we started really looking outside of the industry for ideas and how to be innovative and what mattered to us. And I think that made a huge difference in the way we've been able to be successful, and also what I can bring to the table when it comes to other clients and other businesses that I'm involved in. So that was really like how all of that came about.
Yeah, no, funny you mentioned Zappos because I think it's called Delivering Happiness by Tony Hsieh. Great book, one of the first like business books I read, and yeah, kind of what we do is try to deliver happiness to our clients. So that's awesome that you learned that. And that's really awesome, I think, that you planned it out with your staff involved too.
Yes. Well, if I didn't have a staff, doesn't mean I couldn't do it. But for anyone listening, do not be afraid to tap into them. They are the ones doing the work every single day. They're going to have the great ideas. They're going to then, when they're involved, feel like they have more ownership in what's happening. And then when you empower them to take ownership and support them, even if they make mistakes, like today, I wouldn't even, I mean, this is going to sound terrible, but I don't care. I don't even know how to put someone on hold in our agency. I literally do nothing in our business because everyone that works in our business has a position they own and they know exactly what results they need to produce, and it's theirs to do, and they're incentivized based off of that. So they're happy. They love their environment. You know, I find out what's important to them and what kind of incentives they want. Everybody's different. And again, we worked on figuring out what do they love to do and how can we go all in on what they're good at instead of always trying to fix what they're not good at. I think that's something that a lot of people do. It's like, oh, you're not good at sales. Let me just throw a bunch of sales training at you or micromanage you or, try to push you and challenge you, which I think you should push and challenge your team. But if that's not their zone of genius is maybe marketing. They just love building relationships and they don't mind going out and doing that. Well, then that's where you should place all your chips. That's where you should bet on them, right? Total Vegas metaphor there. But so that's what we did. And, now I have time freedom completely for my agency, and it's still growing and still scaling. And, it's been the best thing that has ever happened to us. We were definitely nervous when COVID hit because we're commercial heavy. I was like, oh Lord, like everyone's going to cancel their policies. All these businesses are going to go out of business. And so, we had to shift to being remote for a little while. But if anything, it actually 10x'd our ability to be remote and automate a lot of things. And I only have 2 producers in the agency right now and 1 service team member. And we have a very large book of business that my service team member can handle. Usually I say, or I think industry standard is like 1.5 to $2.5 million in service per amount of book per service person. We are definitely close to the, 8-figure number, and we have 1. And now she's like, okay, I'm done. I need help. So I'm definitely hiring right now for help. But my 2 producers produce anywhere from 200 to 500,000 a month, and it's consistent. And also, they thought I was crazy when I told them our first month we were going to sell 75,000 per person. It's $150,000 in premium. We had never sold that in State Farm in 1 month. And they were like, you're insane. And I said, yeah, but look how much business we've, given out to other people, how much business we can tap into. We have so much more freedom. You have to believe that you can do this. First of all, believe that you can do it. And they each wrote 150 each their first month. So like suddenly it was like, holy crap, we can do this. And I can work way less hard and make a lot more money doing what we're doing. And as soon as they believed it and they saw that they could do it, it was over. There was no going back from there. And I think that's something that I try to instill in as many people as I come across, and just saying, look, if you just decide that you're going to do it and your team can get behind it and really believe that it's possible, it may not happen the first month or the second month, but if you just keep pushing, it will happen. You just have to believe it. That's one of the first things, just make that decision and the universe will come. It really did for me, and it always has. So that's something that's been really great for us.
That's really impressive to have that much. So what would you estimate you said the book of businesses right now?
We're getting almost close to.
Wow, and then 1 service member, huh?
Mm-hmm.
I think the beauty of it is maybe because it's commercial, because the book of business is big, but the contacts is not as, because I can't think of that in personal lines because we have so many people and so
Yes,
many calls coming in. So that's the beauty of commercial lines, probably, that you can have
absolutely.
less service staff members to service,
I
less.
will say, I mean, we have some commercial clients that need upwards of 300 COIs a year. It depends on what industry it is and how heavy, obviously, the service needs to be for that particular client. But we still have quite a bit of personal lines. So there is some of that service mundane stuff. But what's made the biggest difference is, like I said, when COVID hit, we had to go remote. And I was like, all right, this isn't going to work if we can't figure out ways to automate as much as possible. So what are the everyday things that we're doing all day that's consistently recurring, that's taking up a lot of our time? And one of the big things for me is I audit my team's time all the time. If someone says I'm overwhelmed, I'm busy, I can't get to this thing, or it's falling through the cracks, I immediately say, write down what you do for the next week, every minute of the day. I know it sounds silly, right? And these are just such basic things that I think we try to overcomplicate how business needs to go, that even as simple as something as like write on a piece of paper what you did all day can seem so basic. But when we do that, I can go in and say, okay, you just spent 2 hours today just sifting through paperwork, let's just say, right? Or having to look for something that, if you know you need this constantly, why isn't it located right here? Or you had to send, I don't know, 150 text messages. Well, how do we automate some of this stuff? And then we started building a customized automation system and funnel for billing, for cancellations, for renewals. And now we don't do those things. And so my team gets to focus on the money-making activities. And I think that's how we've been able to really scale and streamline, not needing so much manpower, woman power, whatever you want to call it, right? Just power of team. And that obviously keeps payroll costs down and allows us to be more profitable. So I'm huge on, do more with less, and figuring out how do we maximize, again, all those people, what their zone of genius is, and how do we then automate so many things that we can automate in our business. I know that's a huge topic in our industry lately.
Hmm.
And being captive, there was no way we could have done what we do now because there's limitations to what we're allowed to do. But I definitely think there's a lot of systems and softwares that are being integrated into the captive world that are allowing you to have more freedom and or to be able to do some of these things. So that's been huge for us, and we obsess over it. We're like,
Yeah.
all right, what can we automate now? I don't want to do this task anymore. How do we make it so that technology, takes over? So
Yeah, the way I look at it, like the automation services, it doesn't cost as much as one full-time employee, but it does as much as like 10 does.
yeah,
It could,
yeah.
so it's so worth our effort and time to build it out and to pay for those. But what software are your favorites?
So our tech kind of stack right now, we use Slack for communication in the office because again, I was getting bombarded with text messages, right? And it was or emails, and it was just getting lost in all the incoming things. Or we would start one conversation and it was like, I know I scroll through it and I'm like, I know you talked about this. Let me go back. So Slack really helps us to categorize conversations and to be able to follow the flow. And you could turn it on and off when you need to, so you're not being driven nuts on off business hours and things.
Hmm.
So that's how we communicate. And then we use something called Monday.com for pretty much all of our tracking because we were using Excel sheets and different things like that. And it started with just wanting to track sales. And then it turned into tracking billing. So anyone who hasn't made payments or things like that, right? Like all that BS. And then we started tracking our entire book of business. So really heavy on tracking. I'm a big data person and I want to be able to go in a second and look at a screenshot or look at the dashboard and see exactly where we're at all the time. And Monday also has a ton of integration options for automation. So texting, emailing, even call dropping. And then also it has automations where, for example, for renewals, we have our entire book of business in there. And so 2 weeks, 3 weeks, depending on what type of policy it is, we send them out a notification. It automatically goes out 3 weeks before, let's say. And then it sets it where in 365 days, it's going to reset it so that it does it again. And we don't touch it. We don't have to click any buttons. We don't have to do anything. So it's great. It's amazing, right? It saves us so much time and energy, and everything is tracked, easy to pull reports on. So Monday is amazing. It's outside of our industry. There was a lot of work to customize it on the front end, but now everything just works and flows really well. And then, we use Easy Links, which I don't know if you would know about what that is, but that's our agent management
Hmm.
system. And we've maximized what that can do. So we really don't use a lot of technology, but
Did you
we
need help building out those templates on the Monday.com, or did you actually do them yourself? Because that's a lot of
no.
communication.
Yeah, I'm huge on learning how to do things myself. So I went in, I mean, before this, I had tried different project management systems for just different things that I was doing in other businesses. I tried Trello, ClickUp, Airtable, right? Like all the different ones. And Monday is just the one that stuck that I feel like has been the best. But I learned how to do it all. And we started, like I said, with one, just tracking sales. Then we said, okay, if we sell somebody, we want to onboard them. And we have an automation where they get a link sent to them to review us. So it helps us get one Google review almost every single day. We want to ask for referrals. And so there's a referral automation that goes out. And we just started adding things as we knew we were doing them. And we asked ourselves, like, what can we automate? All of these things can be automated. So it just grew into this huge monster. And once I found a team member on our team that was really good at this stuff, like analytical and understood how the technology worked, I said, hey, this is yours. You are now responsible for this. Every change we need to make, any way to make this better, it's yours. Now it's this monster that I can't even manage. And, she is the point person. So if we have questions, we go to her, and she's made it incredible. So that's pretty much it. I've used other things too, obviously in other businesses that can be used in insurance anytime. But I'm really big on learning something myself so that I can then manage my team and or train my team or teach them. And then if I need to delegate it, at least they know that I know what I'm talking about or what I'm doing. And then we can transfer it out or hire a VA to do it or whatever needs to happen. So I'm really big on learning it myself first before we integrate it and delegate it out to someone.
Yeah, because if you don't know it, then how can you judge the other person if they're using it right? But yeah, that's thank you so much for sharing your secrets there.
Yeah, no worries.
I'm gonna ask another question, but before we do that, I just want to acknowledge you for, planning it out first. I think sometimes as agency owners, because there's so much to do, we're just kind of in this survival mode, and we're just doing whatever we can that day. But sometimes taking a step back and taking yourself out of the business and trying to envision what you really want, and then talking to your staff and really understanding what they want, what they're good at, and putting them in positions. I think that was really powerful. I just didn't want to, you know, bypass how and acknowledge you for how important that was for other agents to really. We have such an opportunity to design our life and then have the business help us, you know, design what we want.
Yeah.
So I think that was great, and really understanding what you want first, I think is really something that I really encourage other agency owners to do.
Yeah, I think we get sometimes scared to take ourselves out of the business and just take some time, even if all you can allow yourself, let's say, just to be comfortable with it, is an hour a week. Fridays at noon, you go and you sit somewhere and you just vision plan or think to yourself of what can be better in the business and really take yourself out of all the daily things you're doing in the business and think about how to work on the business. And then slowly, slowly, as you implement some of these ideas, hopefully you buy yourself more time and then it becomes an entire Friday every week,
Yeah.
right? And I always tell people, like, I promise you, your business is not going to burn down to the ground because of 1 hour a week. You'll be okay. And if even if something comes up, like, you can handle it, you'll be able to go back in and do what you have to do. But it really makes a huge difference in the way you can scale your business and finally implement the long to-do list, and all the ideas that you have can be as simple as 1 hour a week if that's all you can, you know.
Yeah, and sometimes if people argue, "Hey, I'm so busy, I don't have that 1 hour," but I think the ROI on that 1 hour is so much more valuable than the other hours you spent doing things that are in the business.
Right.
You
Yeah.
know, so yeah, that's a great planning. I did that on Sunday mornings, um, but planning and just trying to figure out and deepen my thoughts. Kids aren't awake yet, still dark outside. Wake up early, coffee, and just really think. I think those are the moments where I've really figured out some stuff and strategized that has helped our agency. So here's another one that I'm interested in when it comes to your secrets that you're sharing with us. So thank you so much. But what are some? How do you market to get so much the commercial business? Because the commercial business is certain niches and you have to target the right people and stuff like that. But what are some of your marketing strategies that you could share with us?
Yeah. So I would say the reason we really got involved in commercial was something that I had to my advantage. So, like I said, I grew up in LA. I moved here. Oh my God. I wouldn't say grew up in LA. I was like 12 when we moved here. So, I really now I'm just
Yeah.
a native Vegas person, I feel like. But being here for so many years and my family also being entrepreneurs, I had a lot of contacts. And people just started asking me, can you insure my business, when we were with State Farm? And it was hard to insure business when you're so used to personal lines. All of a sudden you have, you know, all these limits and guidelines, and, well, does this person do this in their business? And then the underwriter is reviewing their website and they're like, well, you didn't tell me they do this, and all of this stuff. But as we started realizing that we can sell way more premium and not do as much work,
Hmm.
and once we learned a particular industry or a type of policy, then it was like, we know it now. We don't need to always, right, relearn things. It just became so much more profitable. And we then decided we were going to focus on some commercial. It was just something like, we're like, all right, we know that this is more profitable. Like, let's see what we can do. So the first thing that I did was I picked someone to focus on commercial a little bit more than they did personal lines. And I said, all right, let's pick one industry. We know that State Farm has an appetite for this, meaning that they will close these policies and we're not going to have underwriting issues, and they're competitive in this industry. So we started calling it an industry focus, and we went after one industry. And that's what I would recommend anyone who's either captive or has appointments with certain carriers, figuring out where they're competitive and where it's going to be easier to place business until you get, your feet wet. And we just started figuring out different industries. So we would do an industry focus. We would go out, we would pop into these businesses. We would look for them on the Secretary of State for our state. We would sometimes buy leads. Like we tried so many different things. And at the end of the day, the best thing was me personally going out and doing networking and shaking hands and trying to find business owners. Where are they hanging out? Where can I also hang out? Where I'm not just sitting there talking about, hey, can I insure your business? Can I insure your business? But really building a relationship to find out more. The other thing is that we started bringing value to business owners. So the emails we would send out, the things we would talk about on social, the things we would talk about at events, like marketing. Everybody loves marketing when they're a business owner. And it could be things that anybody could implement. So it was suddenly like, oh, she's bringing me value, or they're bringing me more value than just insuring my business. They understand business. We would constantly talk about me being an entrepreneur and coming from an entrepreneur background. So it really became this story of what made us unique. And how does my team now articulate our story as our brand whenever we're on the phone, when we're emailing, when we are posting on social, when we're at networking events, when we're in front of clients, asking them for their business or referrals for their friends. So it really became more about branding, that we were commercial specialists. We understand your business and we want to also see your business grow. It's in our interest to see your business grow. If there's anything we can help you learn or implement in your business, we'd love to do that. And that comes back to, again, my consulting years and my passion and what I learned going through school and different things like that. So it really, I think, set us apart. And even today, all we do is talk about, we want commercial referrals. If we're going to someone and saying, hey, we'd love to partner with you to see if we can help your clients, because you might not be able to help them, we are commercial specialists. We always say there's nothing we can't do, and commercial is all we do. Yes, we do personal lines, but that's kind of like the brand, right? Mm-hmm. So just talking about it constantly and knowing that I was someone who was great at going out and shaking hands and making friendships and relationships. I mean, these people started inviting us to their weddings and to their baby showers, and it just really became a whole thing that we couldn't really stop in a way. And then my team. So then I started teaching my team how to do that. Once I perfected it myself, they started seeing what I was doing, and now they go out and they go to marketing events and they brand and they pop into businesses and they speak just like I spoke and are an extension of the brand now. So it just started working. You just have to be able to articulate to people your story and who you want to work with, why you're working with these people, and what you can do for them, and just try to set yourself apart from, anyone else that's doing business right now.
Wow, okay, awesome. So you pick the industry, you show up to the events, bring value to them, and from what it sounds like, there's a lot of effort obviously involved.
In the beginning.
Mhm.
And honestly, it probably took maybe about 12 months of consistent effort. And then, since then, we haven't really had to do much because we built that big pipeline and we ask for the referrals and we build those relationships and we show up for them. And that's when, we started getting people calling us without us really having to do as much work. So I would say if you would really just commit and stay consistent for a good 12 months, it'll happen in that 12 months. You'll start seeing results. But the big results where you're like, okay, I can take my foot off the gas a little bit, will be when you hit that 12-month mark, because you've stayed consistent. People don't like to see you come in and out, right? They want to see you doing the same thing, saying the same thing over and over time. And it takes people nowadays, with how much stimulation we have. I think it used to be like you have to hear something 3 times before you remember. Now I think it's like 8 or 12. And just consistently showing up. We also started, when we went independent, we would go visit captive agents, obviously, because there was a market there that they couldn't insure. And we would go every 6 weeks, we would go to the captive agent's office. We would drop off gifts. We would have conversations. We would get really close with them. And even when in the beginning it was awkward, right? By the time we visited them the 4th time, then now it's like we have a friendship. It starts to open up. And we also are really big on hitting them with their referral incentive right away. So if somebody sends us a referral within an hour or two, they have their gift card. As long as a person gets quoted and all that stuff is great. But again, that incentivizes them to continue sending us business if they can. So, and then it just grew. So moving to independent, we never purchased internet leads. We don't do any marketing other than our physical selves being out in the community. And we maybe spend $500 a month in gift cards, I would say.
And you write that much business.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's amazing. That's what I wanted to
Yeah.
touch on is the marketing budget. Not
I know you probably hate hearing that. Like,
Yeah.
geez. But yeah, and again, it's about like we really went and niche down very, very much so commercial, but then also because I'm in the manufacturing business as well. So we have a lot of manufacturing clients. I mean, yes, it's, Vegas style too. It's like, shake hands about connections, but really that's what matters. And if you build these relationships genuinely with people and find out about their lives and how they've grown their business. I mean, one of the best things we do is ask people the story about how they got into their industry. People like to talk about themselves. And the more they talk about themselves, the more they like you because now they're talking about themselves. So they associate that happiness with you, even though all you did was ask them a question. And you find out like this amazing story about how their dad was in this industry for years and they kind of took over, or maybe they fell into it like I did with insurance. And when you can have those type of conversations, a person feels closer to you and they're going to want to do business with you, even when the prices might be better somewhere else, or even when things are going crappy in the industry or different things like that. And again, it's really about those personal relationships. And if you do that consistently and show up and just tell your story over and over and try to learn more about your clients. Another thing that we did too, is we got really focused on, you'll probably know what this is, but your ideal client avatar, right? Mm-hmm. And one of the best ways I tell people to figure out who's your ideal client that you want to do business with is if you just close your eyes right now and think of the phone ringing, it's your favorite client, like you're running to answer the phone. Who is that? What do they do? Where do they live? What are they into? What are their pain points? What are their pleasure points? Like, what is it about that person that you love doing business with them? And how do you get more of that person? So if I know it's this one client that we've defined, and I know they love this restaurant, or they love going to concerts, or they love certain books or podcasts or things, how do you get in front of them and get in front of more people like them, right? So that's another thing that we did too, is we really kind of honed in on who is our ideal client? How do we get in front of more of them? And we started focusing on that so that we could build our book with people that we like to work with.
Yeah, same thing with the planning of how you want your life to be. You want to plan who your customer wants to be and then work your way backwards. Yeah. So that's great advice there too.
Yeah.
So if anything is clear, is that you're an entrepreneur.
I hope so. I don't know. I told you, I love this stuff. I could talk about it all day long. It's great.
Now, how important do you think that is for being an agency owner?
So that's what I was kind of talking about before, of that, most people that get in this industry are not entrepreneurs, or they didn't mean to, and it just kind of worked out to be this way. And they look around and they just kind of start doing what the person next to them is doing or what they're told that they should be doing. And I think that we need to focus more in our industry about the entrepreneurial journey and that you're a business owner more than it is we sell insurance, right? And how do you get really good at selling insurance? It's really important for you to sell because that's the oxygen of your business. It's the revenue. If you can't do that, well, you're SOL. But I know plenty of agents that sell a lot of business and they're not profitable. And I think we need to put more of an emphasis on how do you actually run a business? How do you become a better CEO? How do you become an entrepreneur? And not just that, there's so much opportunity and not everybody wants more opportunity. But when your business becomes profitable, what do you do with that profit? Are you reinvesting it? Are you opening other businesses? Are you scaling? Are you doing the things that you want to do in your life? Are you finding joy in other ways? But even as simple as buying the building, right? Or maybe opening another location, or what does that look like? And that's the entrepreneurial spirit that I think is important when we go long term and really look down the road for those that are just starting out, or are at a point where they can invest in some other things, and just thinking bigger picture than maybe just I need to sell insurance, right? So it's
Yeah,
a little bit
I
different.
absolutely agree. Yeah, it's a totally different level of, you're being an insurance agent versus your agency owner. And I think a lot of agents struggle to make that leap or transition. And the ones that are able to transition to the agency owner entrepreneurial, you know, um, decision making and attitude, then they're willing to take more risks, and that's when you're actually building something, more um, larger, more substantial. I think so. I absolutely agree with you. I think that is something that's really important for us to share and for us to talk about. So, talk a little bit about your coaching program. Um, what type of thing does it entail?
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, how did you get started? Well, you always had a passion in it. I do
Yeah.
a little bit of it too. I do a little bit more lead providing services, but I also do some consultation work too. So I want to share some thoughts
Yeah.
on your consultation business.
So, again, it kind of goes back to what I went to school for, what my passion is. Once I started making the money I wanted to make and I wasn't worried about finances and things like that, I said, okay, we've invested in some things, but like, what do I really want to do with my time now? I had time freedom and I wasn't ready to retire or just do nothing all day. And I always had mentors, consultants, coaches in my life. And I read a bunch of books. I would go to conferences, I would go to events, and I really realized that, again, there's a gap in talking about business and teaching people the tools on how to run their business. And especially, no offense, but for women in our industry. I think there's more women opening agencies than there are men. And it's going to start flipping and changing as far as the ratio goes. And I think there wasn't always, at least when I started, there wasn't always a space that felt comfortable and safe for us. And so when I really thought about, in the beginning, it was like, I want to go back to doing business consulting. And it took me some time. This idea was like 3-4 years ago. And not just that, the digital space, right? There was so much education online. There were so many things we can suddenly now tap into on a virtual, on a virtual platform like we are now. And just my head started buzzing. And it wasn't until I sat with a friend of mine who we were going over, like, again, who's my ideal client and who do I need to market to and what value am I bringing and what's the client transformation I'm going to bring. And it was like something happened in the conversation where I was like, I have to do this for women, specifically in insurance. I felt like just my heart was calling me to do that. And that's when Agency by Design, is what it's called, the program, was born. And again, it's really about designing your business and not leaving it for default. It's also about turning your burden business now into a blessing, just like you wanted. And it's 6 months. It's kind of a hybrid of online lessons and education to one-on-one consulting that I do with clients. And it's all about business foundations. I will help you with creating a sales process that's going to be efficient and help you scale and get results, but I'm not going to teach you how to sell. It's way more. And if that's what someone needs, I have people that I can refer them to that I think are wonderful, but it's really about business. Like, we dive into your numbers. We teach you how to track properly. All the things that I talked about,
Hmm.
right? Branding and what's your return on investment and what are your income producing activities and how to spend your days more productively, how to get more out of each team member, with less team members, all the things. So that's really what it is. And it's based off the framework and formula that I used that has obviously been successful. And my clients are finding amazing success. And it's the most amazing feeling. Even today, I was on a call with a client and I was like, do you realize we have nothing to talk about? I think it's time for you to graduate, right? And that's the best thing, because in the beginning, it's like, there's so many things. I don't know what to do. It's crazy. It's the whirlwind. And we slowly just chip away at it and implement things and execute. And I hold them accountable. I always say I'm not a coach because I'm not going to cheer you on. I'm not a cheerleader. I'm going to kick you in the butt. And we really dive into the consulting piece of how to really do these things and how to implement them in your business. So that's kind of how that started. And I went on and learned how to run a digital business. I had no idea what I was doing, right? Anything from, if anyone listening knows this stuff, but anything from email funnel campaigns to building lead magnets and, what's copy look like and all of these things, like how do you sell through the internet, and lots of amazing things that I've learned just by doing. I don't have website designer. I don't have an email campaign, outsourced. Every single piece has been done by me. I do now have a part-time employee that helps me because it's just grown so fast. But now that I know what I'm doing, I can start outsourcing, delegating, automating the things. So there you go. That's what I'm doing right now. That's where I spend most of my time.
That's super exciting. Um, so how much is it like online videos that's already pre-made, or do you do also online one-on-one coaching? Like how does that break down? Is it like a 6 months course, or is it like as you need it
Yeah.
type, or
So it is a hybrid where everything that's included in my framework, it's about 42 lessons. They're usually between 5 to 15 minutes each. And every week they get access to new lessons. And the
Mhm,
reason why is because when they have access to everything, they're just going to go through the whole thing, right? And
mhm.
they're not going to implement anything. And it's going to be like, oh, that was great information. Kind of when you go to a conference, you
Yeah.
don't decide what you're going to do when you get back. It was just inspirational. So every single week, they have new content that gets released to them that they'll go through, and it goes with every single video goes with an exercise. So, for
Mm,
example, one of the first videos we do is I provide them Excel sheets so that they can go gather all the numbers that they need. And I explain to them what numbers they need, how to find them if they don't know. And they fill this out. And we go through every single piece of their business, from every dollar that comes in to every dollar that goes out. How does that look? I also show them how profitable each team member is. And that's the one where they're like, whoa, this person's costing me this much money per month. I didn't even realize that. Right. And that's where we start. Right. So the next week, it's something different, and they'll do a different exercise. And then every 2 weeks, we get on a call one on one, just like me and you are doing right now. And we go through the exercises and the things they've done and just really make sure they understood what they did. And now, how do we implement it into their business? So if we go through and we figure out their brand, how they articulate, their one liner, if you want to call it. Now I say, okay, does your team know what this is and how to say it? And how are they now doing it? They're picking up the phone, they're having this conversation. Where do they plug this in so that your clients know what your brand is and how you're saying it? As simple as that, as
mhm.
simple as my team member says that they're overwhelmed and I need to hire more people and they can't get things done. All right, well, let's audit their time. It's simple. It doesn't have to be super complicated, but when you're in the whirlwind of everything you're doing every day and you're kind of got your head in the clouds, you can't see the sky. And having somebody come in and really guide you through all these things and keep you focused on the things that are going to make a difference in your business, suddenly results start to come. And that's what I was kind of saying, with the client that's like, well, I don't know what else to talk about. I'm like, you're done. We don't need to do anymore. And some people do it faster, and some people end at the 6 months, and now they're like, well, I want to open another location. And I'm like, well, if you want to keep working with me, this is how it works. But it's been incredible, honestly.
Yeah.
And there's a lot more products that we have this year coming out that I'm really excited about. Like, I can't say anything yet, but we've built this community of amazing women in insurance. We have a Facebook group, and there's also like a membership too, monthly membership, very small cost, but like really intimate, where we get into a lot of detail, and there's just community. It's like the
Mhm.
best thing that I do besides raising my children and having a happy marriage. I really, really, really love it. And I've been brought to tears many times by these women, and they're just amazing. So,
Yeah, something about having a community and having camaraderie and understanding each other. I think that's huge for insurance agents that feel like they're by themselves out there.
yep.
But I also like that. I think it's a great idea to take it lesson by lesson, and you
Yeah.
probably have it figured out. Which you got to figure out one of these lessons first before you can move on to the other one.
Yep.
So
Yeah.
that's really well planned out. And I know, we'll put the description and everything and links, because I just want to offer value to, my audience.
Yeah, of course.
So I feel like, yeah, you have a great, thing going on there as far as coaching, but I'm pretty sure it's on a lot of people's minds. So can you share with us like some of like the costs or like the
Yeah, so the program, if we do pay in full, it's 4,000, and then if it's month by month, it's 750 a month, which ends up being 4,500.
Okay, great.
Yep.
Well, yeah. Well, I'm pretty sure if it's gonna build their business more than that much.
Oh,
That's how
100%.
I look at training.
I had somebody that was kind of on the fence. And honestly, I don't work with everyone. We get on a call and I make sure, one, that you're really going to do the work. I'm not going to waste your money. Two, that you're financially stable enough to afford it. I have had people that are barely making $1,000 a month right now. And I'm like, I'm not taking your money. You're not there yet, but this is what I recommend you do. And when you get to the stage, we can talk again. Um, but in that sense is that there's somebody that was on the fence and I was like, look, if I don't make you this money or save you this money in what we're doing in the next 6 months, like you can have your money back. I'm already rich, thankfully, is for all the things that I'm doing. That's not what I'm here to do whatsoever. I definitely want to bring value. And I, I don't know, I just get blown away by the results that people get. And again, it's simple. It's just stuff that they don't always go do on their own. And I tell people, I'm like, you don't need me. You can do this on your own. I did. You can do all of these things. And, it might take you longer. If you want to get there faster, I'm here to help you. But for the most part, most of us did this on our own. Right.
Mhm.
But again, I also had some consultants and people that pushed me and kicked my butt around and helped me really focus on what was important. And I think that saved me more time. I got to where I got quicker because of those things. So, it just depends on where you're at in your journey and what you're looking for. And not everybody vibes with you, right? Somebody who might not vibe with me might vibe with you or somebody else. There's somebody out there always that you can probably tap into. Don't be afraid to ask for help. I think that's one thing too, especially women in our industry. They're just like not always willing to just put themselves out there as much because it can be intimidating since it's kind of male dominated still. But just don't be afraid. We're out here and we're willing to put our hand out. And I have a ton of free content. So you can follow me on Instagram at Unburden Your Business. I have a podcast too, same name. And you can learn a lot even without paying $1. It's not what really it's about.
Yeah, it's about helping others. I get a lot of fulfillment out of that, and I could sense that you do too. So,
Yeah.
yeah, Cassie, I mean, I learned a lot. You're doing great things in the industry. First of all, I'm just glad to be able to know each other now because I'm going to
Yes,
be
it's
following you.
awesome.
I'm going to be witnessing your journey. You're on to big things. I mean, it's just been 5 years since this agency.
Independent, yeah, almost.
Independent agency,
Mhm.
yeah, and to the book of business size you have, I mean, that's a crazy start.
Yeah.
And your experience is just going to be so valuable. And I'm just excited for your future and to be able to keep in touch with you from now on. It's going to be something that I'm looking forward
I
to too.
I'm in California all the time visiting families. So if I'm ever in the neighborhood and you're home, if you're in the office, maybe I can stop by or we can hang out, go have coffee or something.
Yeah, I'm actually, if you're ever in Disneyland, that's the cue because I'm right down the street from there.
Yeah. Awesome. Very
You
cool.
grew, what part of LA did you
Oh gosh. So I was in the valley, San Fernando Valley, and
okay.
then I lived in the city for a couple years. I moved back, and then I have family in Covina,
Oh,
but
okay.
we come out all the time. We really like to do like beach house rentals on the beach for the weekend. So we will go to Newport or San Diego or up north. But I mean, I'm not that far from you a lot of times out of the year. So I'm sure we'll find time to maybe hang out.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Yeah, really looking forward to that, Cassidy. Well, thank you so much for being on the show. I think it was amazing. I learned so much, and I definitely just have a good sense. Can I sign up if I'm not a woman?
So I do have male clients. I do have male clients actually, but we really brand to women. But
Uh,
no, I will work with anyone. I'm not like no men, no,
okay,
nothing
okay,
like that. But yeah,
okay. So all my
absolutely.
listeners out there, but
Yeah,
yeah, definitely something. Yeah, I'm considering. I think what your knowledge and your enthusiasm, um, yeah, and the things we talked about are things I absolutely agree with. What's important,
yeah.
how do we scale our businesses, how do we become business owners, then insurance agents. So yeah, just thank you so much for bringing so much value to this show. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
And yeah, we'll be keeping in touch.
Awesome. Thank you.
All right, thank you guys.